How is it possible that the creator of all the galaxies remained in absolute silence for 18 years while the world collapsed into corruption? Why does the Bible choose to erase the record of the Messiah's life between the ages of 12 and 30, leaving a void that has puzzled theologians for 2,000 years? Have you ever woken up feeling like you're wasting your life? Like your talents are buried? Like God has forgotten you while other people shine? Jesus lived that for 18 years. The creator of the universe working as an unknown laborer, hauling stones, sweating under the sun, invisible. We've been taught that Jesus was just a small-town carpenter, but what the original sources reveal is an unprecedented spiritual intelligence operation. The Sanhedrin had spies on every corner of Israel. They watched every noble lineage. They tracked any messianic claimant. But they had not a single file on Jesus. 0 records. How was that possible? The secret lies in a word that most translations ignore. Tecton. Jesus wasn't just working with wood. He was being shielded from the most dangerous religious system in history. Forged in anonymity, prepared in the shadows. And what he built during those 18 years wasn't just stone houses. It was the unshakable foundation of a character that neither Rome, nor the Sanhedrin, nor hell itself could break. We're going to dive into the Talmud, the Zohar, and archaeology to understand what happened in the hiding place of Nazareth. We'll discover why Jesus' brothers thought he was crazy, why Joseph, his earthly father, had to die before Jesus began his ministry, and why Jesus chose exactly age 30 to emerge from hiding, fulfilling a Levitical protocol no one expected. Get ready to understand that those 18 years of silence weren't wasted time. They were the secret weapon that allowed the Messiah to dismantle a system that never even saw him coming. The anonymity ends when the forerunner cries out in the wilderness, but what was built in the shadows would change eternity forever. The first question no one asks is, why did God choose Nazareth? To the elite in Jerusalem, that tiny village in Galilee was synonymous with ignorance and impurity. Nathanael summed up the prejudice in one line. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? John 1:46. But we discovered something that changes everything. The name Nazareth comes from the Hebrew root ntz-r, which means the hidden shoot or the guarded root. Isaiah 11:1 prophesied exactly that. A shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots a branch will bear fruit. The Hebrew word for branch is netzah. Jesus was the hidden netzah, the invisible shoot growing from a buried root. While the Sanhedrin watched palaces and noble lineages in Jerusalem, God planted his son in a geographic blind spot. Nazareth was the perfect camouflage, the place where the King of Kings could grow without interference from the teachers of the law. The Midrash teaches that God's greatest revelations happen in the silence of dry land, far from the spotlights and human vanity. If Jesus had grown up in Jerusalem, his wisdom would have been credited to some famous rabbi, Hillel, Shammai, Gamaliel. But God wanted Jesus' authority to be purely divine. No debts to human institutions, no credentials from the system. Picture the young Jesus walking those hills, watching the religious system become an empty shell, while he became the real substance. Every day of anonymity was a nail driven into the coffin of human pride. He was defeating ego before he even faced the devil in the wilderness. The silence was the sound of a foundation being laid, brick by brick, in the soul of a man who carried divinity. But this hiding place had a technical purpose that goes far beyond common theology, and it all starts with a poorly translated word that hides Jesus' true profession. We grew up hearing that Jesus was a carpenter, but the Greek word tecton says something much deeper and more impactful. A dekton. In the first century wasn't a woodworker sanding tables. He was a master builder, an architect of structures, a specialist in stone, wood, and metal. Jesus wasn't in a dark workshop making stools. He was involved in the engineering of Galilee's very foundations. Archaeology reveals that during those 18 years of silence, the city of Sepphoris, just 6 kilometers from Nazareth, was being rebuilt. Sepphoris was the ornament of Galilee, a luxurious Roman city, theaters, mosaics, palaces. And it's almost certain that Jesus and Joseph worked there. Imagine the brutal contrast, the creator of the world sweating to lift heavy stones while religious leaders debated abstract rules in the temple. While the Pharisees argued over the weight of a grain of wheat on the Sabbath, the tecton, Yeshua calculated the weight of cornerstones. He knew the strength of materials because he himself had created them in the beginning of all things. There's a powerful typology here. The one who laid the foundations of the earth now submitted his hands to raw matter. The Zohar mentions that certain spiritual lights can only be revealed after being hidden in coarse vessels. Manual labor was Jesus' academy, where he exercised patience, precision, mastery over the physical creation. Every wooden beam he carried was rehearsal for the weight of the cross. Every stone he set prepared him to be rejected as the cornerstone, Psalm 118:22. If he didn't master the structure of stone, how could he master the structure of the human spirit years later? But there was a problem. A master of that level wouldn't stay unnoticed for long, unless a prophetic shielding was in operation. And that shielding began inside Jesus' own home, with people who should have believed in him, but didn't. Mark 3:21 records something most preachers avoid. When his family heard about this, they went to take charge of him, for they said, "He is out of his mind." Who were his family? Mark 3:31 clarifies, "Then his brothers and his mother came." Jesus' own family thought he had lost his mind. John 7:5 confirms, "For even his own brothers did not believe in him." Imagine the pain of that. You have a burning calling inside you. But the people closest to you, who should support you, treat you like you're crazy. Jesus lived that for years, eating at the same table as brothers who mocked him, working alongside James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon, Mark 6:3, who didn't see who he really was. They saw the big brother, the tecton who woke up early, who sweated on job sites, but not the Messiah. And here's the mystery no one explains. Mary knew who Jesus was. Luke 2:19 says she treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. She knew about the virgin conception. She knew the prophecies. She knew he was the Son of God. But she couldn't reveal it to the other children. Why? Because if she told them Jesus was conceived without Joseph, the brothers would have two options. 1. Believe it was a miracle, unlikely. 2. Believe Mary committed adultery, devastating. So Mary kept the secret. And Jesus carried the weight of being misunderstood by his own family. The Talmud, Sanhedrin 11a, teaches that no prophet is honored in his own town. Jesus fulfilled that literally. He was a prophet without honor in Nazareth, a tecton without recognition at home, a Messiah invisible to his own brothers. But this family rejection wasn't an accident. It was training. If Jesus couldn't endure misunderstanding from those who loved him, how could he endure betrayal from Judas? If he couldn't survive isolation at home, how could he survive the disciples abandoning him in Gethsemane? The brothers' rejection forged in him the capacity to forgive, even when no one asks for forgiveness. And the most amazing part? After the resurrection, James, the doubting brother, became the leader of the church in Jerusalem, Acts 15:13. The same mouth that mocked bowed down. The unbelieving brother became a martyr because Jesus conquered his family not with arguments, but with resurrection. And that leads us to another devastating question. If the family didn't believe, who sustained Jesus emotionally for 18 years? The answer lies in a man the Bible silences after Jesus turned 12, Joseph, the silent father. Joseph disappears from the biblical accounts after Luke 2:51. Jesus was 12. After that, nothing. Not a word about Joseph. But when Jesus begins his ministry at 30, he's called Joseph's son, Luke 4:22, and the carpenter's son, Matthew 13:55. What does that mean? Joseph died sometime during those 18 years of silence, and that death changed everything. Imagine Jesus, the Son of God, standing over the body of the man who raised him. Joseph wasn't his biological father, but he was the one who taught Jesus to hold a hammer, to measure wood, to build with precision. Joseph was the one who protected Mary from public shame when she appeared pregnant. Matthew 1:19 says Joseph had in mind to divorce her quietly because he was a righteous man. But God intervened, and Joseph obeyed. He accepted carrying the suspicion of having impregnated Mary before marriage. He accepted being called unclean to protect the Messiah's secret. Joseph was a martekton, and he passed the trade to Jesus. He taught the creator of the universe to work with creation. But when Joseph died, Jesus was left alone, the firstborn of a family that didn't understand who he was, provider for brothers who mocked him, supporting Mary, the only one who knew the truth but couldn't speak it. The Zohar teaches about prophetic orphanhood, when God removes the earthly father, so the prophet depends entirely on the heavenly Father. It happened with Moses, Exodus 2:10, with Samuel, 1 Samuel 1:28, and with Jesus. Joseph's death forced Jesus to look upward, to trust that the heavenly Father would supply what the earthly father no longer could. And here's the devastating typology. Joseph, the patriarch in Genesis, was sold by his brothers, went down to Egypt, was forgotten, but later saved his whole family. Joseph, the tekton, raised Jesus, died in anonymity, but prepared the one who would save all humanity. Both named Joseph, both rejected, both used by God for redemption. Jesus didn't just lose a father. He gained the freedom to have no more human debts. When he finally declared in Gethsemane, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me." Luke 22:42. He wasn't speaking to Joseph. He was speaking to the only father who would never abandon him. Joseph's death was painful, but it was necessary because the Messiah couldn't have two fathers, only one, and that one would send him to the cross, knowing he would rise again. But before the cross, there was a protocol to fulfill, a specific age that God waited for Jesus to reach, and that age reveals a secret hidden in Numbers that no one connects to Jesus' ministry. Jesus was 12 when he amazed the teachers in the temple, but he only began his public ministry at 30. Why? Luke 3:23 records it with surgical precision. Now, Jesus himself was about 30 years old when he began his ministry. But why did God wait 18 years? The answer is in Numbers 4:3. Count all the men from 30 years old to 50 years of age who come to serve in the work at the tent of meeting. 30 was the minimum age for full Levitical service. Jesus wasn't from the tribe of Levi. He was from Judah, Hebrews 7:14. Yet he still fulfilled the protocol. Why? Because he was inaugurating a superior priesthood. And the superior priesthood doesn't annul the inferior protocol. It fulfills it. David also began reigning at 30, 2 Samuel 5:4. Joseph was exalted in Egypt at 30, Genesis 41:46. Ezekiel began his prophetic ministry at 30, Ezekiel 1:1. 30 wasn't random. It was maturity recognized by God, the age when a man has proven character, faced pain, endured rejection. But there's a deeper layer. Leviticus 25 institutes the Jubilee. Every 50 years, all debts forgiven, slaves freed, land returned. Jesus declared in Luke 4:19 that he came to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. That's Jubilee language, spiritual reset, total liberation. And to proclaim Jubilee, he needed the authority of a mature priest. 30 years old. Imagine Jesus counting the days. He knew from childhood who he was. He knew what was coming. But he had to wait. 18 years watching injustice, sickness, death, Roman oppression, temple corruption, and he couldn't do anything until 30. That wait wasn't punishment. It was preparation. God was forging unshakable patience, absolute obedience. Perfect timing. Jesus didn't jump ahead. He didn't force the door. He waited for the kairos, God's appointed time. And when 30 arrived, he walked to the Jordan, not in haste, with certainty, because now the Father had given permission, and the heavens opened. But before John baptized him, Jesus had to return to Nazareth one last time, to do something that would enrage the whole town, and almost get him killed ahead of time. Luke 4:16-30 records the most underestimated event in Jesus' ministry. He returned to Nazareth, entered the synagogue, read Isaiah 61:1-2. The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Then he did something shocking. He closed the book, sat down, and declared, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." Luke 4:21. Dead silence. All eyes on him. Then fury exploded. Luke 4:28-29 records, all the people in the synagogue were furious when they heard this. They got up, drove him out of the town, and took him to the brow of the hill to throw him off the cliff. They tried to throw him off a cliff. Why? Why such violence? First, Jesus claimed to be the Messiah, the anointed of Isaiah 61. To Nazareth, that was blasphemy. They knew the carpenter's son, Matthew 13:55. How dare he declare himself God's chosen? Second, Jesus stopped reading mid-verse. Isaiah 61:2 continues, "And the day of vengeance of our God." Jesus didn't read that part. Why? Because his first coming wasn't for vengeance. It was for salvation. Vengeance would come at the second coming. Revelation 19:11-16. But Nazareth wanted vengeance against Rome now. They wanted a warrior Messiah, and Jesus announced a servant Messiah. Third, Jesus provoked them by comparing Nazareth to Gentiles. Luke 4:25-27 records him saying, "There were many widows in Israel in the days of Elijah, yet Elijah was not sent to any of them, but to a widow in Zarephath in the region of Sidon. And there were many lepers in Israel in the time of Elisha the prophet, yet not one of them was cleansed, only Naaman the Syrian." Jesus was saying God bypassed Israel and blessed Gentiles because Israel rejected the prophets. And now Nazareth was about to reject the Messiah. That was unbearable to them. The town that watched him grow tried to kill him before Rome did. But Luke 4:30 says, "But he walked right through the crowd and went on his way." It wasn't time yet. The timing was the Father's, not theirs. Jesus survived the first assassination attempt, but the message was clear. The prophet without honor in his hometown began his ministry by being rejected by his own town. The same Nazareth that hid him for 18 years now expelled him, because the hidden Netzer had sprouted. And the shoot was declaring an identity no one wanted to accept. But there was something Nazareth didn't know. An invisible shield protected Jesus. And that shield came from a monumental failure in Herod's intelligence. Herod the Great tried to kill Jesus as a baby. Matthew 2:16 records the massacre. He gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under. But the family fled to Egypt, and when they returned, they went to Nazareth. Matthew 2:23. And then, silence. Jesus completely disappeared from the government's radar. How? Herod had a network of spies. He tracked royal lineages. He investigated any threat to the throne, but he had nothing on Jesus. The answer lies in the divine strategy of information blackout. Jesus lived as an ordinary worker. No titles, no possessions, no armies. To the system, he was just the carpenter's son, grandson of Jacob. great-grandson of Mathan, Matthew 1:15-16. The royal lineage was hidden under a tecton's tunic, making it impossible for any spy to connect the dots. The Sanhedrin watched the Levites and priests, but no one bothered to watch Galilean laborers. God used simplicity as the greatest smokescreen in history. Herod expected a Messiah with swords, not with hammer and chisel. The concealment was so perfect that when Jesus began his ministry, even his neighbors were scandalized. Mark 6:23 records their disbelief. Where did this man get these things? Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son? And they took offense at him. They knew the man, but they didn't know the mystery that had dwelt within that body for 18 years. Herod's intelligence failure was believing the Messiah would come with the shine of palaces. God sent him with the shine of stars hidden under construction dust. And when the system finally realized who he was, it was too late. The foundation was laid, the character was forged, the authority was established. Jesus defeated Herod without firing an arrow. He won through anonymity, through patience, through God's perfect timing. But that anonymity produced something no miracle could produce: holiness in the ordinary. And that's what most churches never teach. There's a rarely explored mystery. Jesus performed no public miracles before his baptism. None. 0 supernatural signs recorded. That teaches us something devastating. Holiness doesn't depend on displays of power. It depends on unbroken connection with the Father. We investigated Nazareth's routine and discovered that the supernatural was present in the perfection of character, not in suspending physical laws. Jesus sanctified manual labor, shared bread at the table, silent solitary prayer in the hills. To the Zohar, the greatest wonder isn't parting the sea. It's a man maintaining divine awareness amid mundane tasks. Every table Jesus built was made with the same mathematical precision he used to design planetary orbits. Every beam he lifted carried the same attention to detail he used to create human DNA. The miracle was his absolute patience. The sign was his unshakable integrity in a world where corruption was the rule. He proved it's possible to live a full life in God without stages or applause. Jesus' hidden life is the greatest sermon ever preached on the importance of the inner life before public exposure. Jerusalem's religious system hungered for spectacle, but God focused on forging the Messiah's soul foundation. Without those 18 years of supernatural in the ordinary, Jesus' public manifestation would have been performance, not ontological reality. He carried the Shekinah, the manifest glory of God, into a dusty workshop, turning sweat into worship. We realized that Jesus' victory over sin began in fulfilling small daily obligations, honoring Mary, supporting his brothers, working with excellence, praying without ceasing. He didn't need lightning from heaven to prove who he was. His very existence was the miracle Nazareth couldn't process. And here's the word for you who feel invisible. Your anonymity isn't a curse, it's preparation. Your ordinary work isn't waste, it's spiritual academy. God is forging in you what no stage could ever forge: patience, character, real authority. Jesus lived 18 years without applause, but when the Father said, "This is my beloved Son," all hell trembled. Because true authority doesn't come from crowds, it comes from obedience in hiding. And what was built in Nazareth's silence sustained the noise of Calvary. But there was one final moment when the anonymity would break. And that moment involved authority that left the scribes stunned. When Jesus finally entered the temple and began teaching, the teachers of the law were in technical shock. John 7:15 preserves the prejudice-loaded question: how did this man get such learning without having been taught? In rabbinic eyes, learning meant deep exegesis study. Formal ordination only Jerusalem academies could confer. Jesus had no ansemisha, rabbinic ordination. He didn't study with Hillel or Shammai, no diploma. Yet he taught as one who had authority, and not as their teachers of the law. Matthew 7:29. Where did that authority come from? Jesus answered in John 7:16, "My teaching is not my own. It comes from the one who sent me." He wasn't quoting dead rabbis' commentaries. He was revealing the author's intent because he was the author. The Word made flesh. John 1:14. Those 18 years of silence were when he chewed the Word until it became flesh and authority in him. He didn't need human permission to interpret the law, because he was the eternal lawgiver, hidden in the form of a Galilean tecton. The Sanhedrin tried to fit him into their traditions, but Jesus shattered every dead structure with a single sentence. His authority was that of the builder who knows every structural flaw in a house's foundation. He saw the cracks in the religious system and knew exactly where to strike to bring it down. Matthew 21:42 records Jesus quoting Psalm 118:22. "The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone." He was declaring himself the cornerstone, the supreme tecton, the one the builders, religious leaders, rejected, but whom God placed as the foundation of everything. The wisdom he demonstrated in Jerusalem was forged in the silence of the workshop, where prayer and work were one single breath. The system couldn't refute him, because it didn't know the origin of his training. He was the master with no debts to any human system, and that enraged the scribes, because authority without human credentials exposes the fraud of credentials. Jesus proved God doesn't need diplomas to validate a calling. He needs obedience, and those 18 years of hidden obedience gave Jesus authority no academy could confer. But the time of anonymity was ending, and the two tecton's final act would connect everything he built in Nazareth to what he would accomplish on Calvary. There's a devastating connection between Jesus' years as a tectonzer and his final moment on the cross. We investigated the builder's relationship with wood and realized something that shakes you. Jesus spent 18 years carrying support beams for men's houses. Every time he put his shoulder under the weight of a log in Nazareth's workshop, he was rehearsing the path to Golgotha. The technical knowledge he had about wood, how it splits, how it bears pressure, was pushed to the limit on Calvary. John 19:17 says, "Carrying his own cross, he went out to the place of the skull." The tecton carried his last beam, but this time not to build a house, to be hung on it. Rabbinic tradition speaks of the tree of life, and Jesus, the master of wood, became its fruit on the tree himself. He wasn't an unwitting victim. He was the architect who knew exactly where the weight of human condemnation should be placed, so it wouldn't crush us. His hands, calloused from 18 years of brute labor, were the same hands that bore Roman nails. Hands that built temporary houses in Nazareth now built an eternal dwelling for all humanity. The sweat that fell on the carpentry floor mingled with the blood that fell on Jerusalem's soil, sealing the contract for the reconstruction of our souls. Jesus didn't despise matter. He used it as the stage for the greatest demonstration of love the universe has ever witnessed. Nazareth's silence gave him the spiritual musculature needed to endure the noise of mockery and the weight of our own rebellion. He finished the work on the cross with the same rigor he used to complete a construction in Sepphoris, with technical perfection, with fidelity to the Father's blueprint. And when he said, "It is finished," John 19:30, it wasn't a cry of defeat. It was a declaration of completion. Tetelestai, in Greek it means paid in full. The work was complete. The structure was perfect, the sacrifice was consummated, and the tectons who spent 18 years building in anonymity had completed history's greatest work, the redemption of humanity. The tecton's last word wasn't failure, it was victory. Victory forged in silence, prepared in hiding, manifested on the cross, and consummated in resurrection. What Nazareth didn't see, what Jerusalem rejected, what hell tried to destroy, rose again and changed everything, forever. Those 18 years of silence weren't a power vacuum. They were history's greatest concealment strategy. While the system waited for political spectacle, the Creator was on the job site, forging invincible authority in stone and sweat. We discovered that being a tecton wasn't a subsistence job. It was proof that the Messiah came to rebuild the very foundation of human reality. Anonymity was the necessary shield, so the light of the world could grow uncorrupted by ego. Jesus didn't need diplomas, didn't need noble titles, didn't need academy recognition, because he carried in his hands the marks of the labor that sustains creation itself. Nazareth teaches us definitively, what God builds in secret is what will sustain everything he manifests publicly. If you're invisible today, remember, Jesus lived 18 years with no one knowing who he was. But when the Father revealed him, neither Rome nor hell nor death could stop him. Your silence isn't a curse, it's preparation. Your obscurity isn't rejection, it's protection. God is building in you what no stage could forge. And when he says now, nothing will stop you. Because what was built in hiding will sustain what is manifested publicly.